My friend, if you're struggling finding, vetting, training, and managing virtual team members for your real estate business, I have the solution for you. Call Magicians is the premier virtual assistant company in the real estate industry. And basically what they'll do is allow you to focus on closing more deals and doing the things you love while they handle the work for you. Head over to callmagicians.com and see if you're a good fit to work together. And make sure you use the promo code FLIPEMPIRE for a 20% discount off your startup fee. And by the way, the owner's a friend of mine and shares tons of value, gives a lot of useful tips on episode 540. So check it out at flipempire.com/540.
You're listening to Flip Empire, the show committed to helping real estate entrepreneurs who want to build their empire without sacrificing their life. Your success and freedom starts now with your host, Alex Pardo.
Welcome, my friends, to another awesome masterclass here I have with my good friend, Josh Miller, who I'm excited to have on the podcast today. You guys have heard me speak about the value that I've extracted from masterminds. And one of the biggest things that I've gotten from masterminds is you might think it's actually content. You might think it's resources. It's none of the above. It's relationships. And Josh and I met at a high-level mastermind, a group of other entrepreneurs and people who are looking to invest in themselves, people that are looking for active, really good investment opportunities. And he and I sat at a table and we struck up a conversation. We realized we have a lot in common. Core values are aligned. And Josh is a successful, not just real estate investor, but a successful investor himself. He and his partner have a really cool software where they help other real estate investors as well. Josh is a marketing ninja. So on today's episode, we're going to talk a lot about marketing strategies in 2022. What's working, what's not working. We're going to kind of zoom out, look big picture from a macro perspective, what the real estate market is doing. And then also, you guys know, if you've been following the show, I'm a big lifestyle guy. I'm not about more is necessarily better. But better is better, and quality of life is extremely important to me. And I think Josh embodies a lot of those characteristics as well. In fact, I'm about to introduce him to you and bring him on the podcast, but he is recording this from Paris, where he was just sharing with me that he and his family are just traveling and seeing the world. And they sold their house, and I won't give away too many of the goods. I'll let him kind of share the story, but with that being said, my man, it is awesome to have you on the show.
Alex, thanks for having me, man. And this is exciting and glad to be here.
Yeah, dude. Well, I know we got a lot to get into and dive into. So why don't we kind of just spend a minute or two? We don't have to go too crazy. A little bit about yourself, how ultimately you got into real estate, and then we'll just have some fun from there.
Sure. So my, I guess, 1 minute version is I worked for 10 years as a big data engineer for Chevron. Got to travel the world. It was honestly a dream job, but I had a 75-year-old mentor that was still working and just waiting to retire. Finally retired. 6 months later, he passes away, and that was like my big wake up call that the pension and that whole dream career job wasn't all that it's cracked up to be. So deep dove into real estate, figured that was the best way to get out. Started doing nationwide PPC in 2016. Was very successful in, I think, over 30 states. And but it felt like a job. And I was like, I'm never going to get out of this either. So I was like, I need to build a rental portfolio. So switched from wholesaling, which is buying properties, putting it on the MLS and selling it, to strictly wholesaling, lease options, and mainly just to build up my rental portfolio. Did that in 2018, quit my Chevron job and focused on that. Was able to build up a good sized portfolio of 120 homes, which was, I have so many stories to tell what not to do. Like, oh my goodness, I picked the wrong class. I did C class, F class instead of the A, B. Had horror stories upon horror stories. So yeah, 120 was more than enough. And after, reaching that, I had 100 goal. May of 2019, I was like, I am done. So just was planning on essentially retiring and living off of the rental income, but it was anything but passive and anything but fun. And
Wow.
I really do believe in doing what you love. And so big part of why I stopped wholesaling was I wasn't loving it. And so in 2020, decided to sell my entire portfolio, 120 of them all at once. And because I wasn't loving it, and had to put the money into something. And God gifted me with a good rock climbing buddy who was worth hundreds and hundreds of millions from Bitcoin. And I'd been slaving away for 10 years, and he had been doing nothing. I mean, he invested a small amount, but I was like, yeah, this makes sense. So put everything into crypto, not because I knew a whole lot, but just trusted that it was going to continue to go up, and it ended up being the right decision. And started a software company to help real estate investors with their marketing. Didn't love it. It felt like there was enough softwares out there, so transitioned that into doing the data portion as well. And then finally, 2021, we said, you know what a lot of investors need is just a done-for-you solution where, you just tell a marketing agency, I want the cold calling, the texting, the Facebook ads, the Google ads, I want the whole 9 yards. And that's what we do. And I think the biggest reason for my success is just doing what I love. And like you mentioned, I'm now in Paris, and I don't know what journey is going to bring, but it's truly because I'm practicing what I preach. I do love what I'm doing, and it seems to work out. So yeah, that's my whole life.
Wow. Okay. All right. I'm getting excited because there is so much to unpack and so many questions that I want to ask, that I want to kind of toss your way. And I always tend to put myself in the shoes of the audience and the listener. And when I hear podcasts, I'm like, oh, I hope they ask about this, and I hope they ask about that. So let me rewind back for a bit, because you were working, you said, in your corporate job. And it sounded like you started to build your rental portfolio while you were still working in your job. Is that the case?
Yeah, so I did my nationwide PPC all the way up until mid 2017. That's when I took 6 months off to really choose the right market. And it wasn't until I had chosen the market and I had gotten the first couple rentals in place that I was like, yeah, this is a good market. This is the right decision. And I left my corporate job. But yeah, I'd already done 100+ deals before I actually quit my job.
And this was 100+ deals. So your main marketing channel was nationwide PPC, which for those of you who are listening, Josh is referring to pay-per-click advertising on Google. So you did that, and was your primary exit strategy to take these leads, convert them, and then wholesale these opportunities?
No, I didn't know about wholesaling. It's so funny to say that, but you don't know what you don't know about. And I was wholesaling 100% of them. So I would close on them, find a local realtor, and I'd say, hey, take the pics, you get the listing, and they would put it up on the MLS for me.
And you were doing this virtually, right? So you were in different markets. Lived, where did you live?
Yeah.
And where were you doing deals?
So I lived by the beach in Southern California, and I actually would have loved to do it locally. I actually tried, doing the direct mail route in 2016, and no success. And so that's when I started with the Google ads, and didn't have much success in LA, and noticed that as I continue to expand, my cost per lead was getting cheaper and cheaper until I was actually marketing across the country. And then I found a nugget that was just like a game changer, which was I would actually market for Los Angeles nationwide, except in Los Angeles. So I'd say, hey, sell my house fast in Los Angeles. And I'd have that keyword and I'd put it up, but exclude it in Los Angeles, but it'd still show up across the country. And we're talking 60 cents, 70 cents leads, which it's hard not to make money if your marketing costs are so low. It was fun.
Wow. So cool. All right. Here's one of the things I really want to dive into. So I've spoken to so many people. In fact, I was pretty active on a Facebook post where there was kind of a debate going back and forth about, building wealth through a rental portfolio and passive income versus it not being very passive. And clearly, you're somebody who, it sounds like you built a rental portfolio of 120 properties, 120 doors over what, a 2-3 year period, more or less?
Year and a half. Yeah.
Okay. So a year and a half, you built a portfolio of 120 doors. Here's what I really want to ask you. What was it about that process that ultimately led you to decide to sell the entire portfolio and then put that money into crypto? That's a whole separate conversation that I kind of want to get into with you, because that takes a lot of balls, and that's really cool that you did that. And obviously that was the right decision. But people get into this to acquire assets that spit off cash flow and build wealth. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception as to how passive owning rentals is and or can be. You experienced it. You lived it firsthand. So what was your experience? When was it that you realized that, hey, this isn't what I thought it was going to be? And then how'd you ultimately come to that decision to like, hey, I spent 18 months building this portfolio. Now let me just sell the whole damn thing.
Yeah. So it honestly felt like every day I was getting stabbed in the back by tenants, by contractors, by property management company. Every day it was hard. And so I kept thinking, okay, I just need somebody to handle my property management, project manager to handle my property management company, then life will get easy. And I hired them and my cash flow decreased a little, but I was like, okay, but it never got to the point that it was just like a cakewalk. And I learned the hard way that what's on paper is not always what correlates to real life. And I think the biggest kind of wake up for me was when I had a property manager who we hired them. I had an in-house property management. I had to outsource, but when it was my in-house, we hired her. She worked for us a month, amazing employee. And then a week before rent was due, she went around and knocked on every single one of my doors, my properties. Must have taken her the whole week and said, hey, our system's down. We're only accepting cash. And managed to, walk away with, I don't even know, $60K or something like that. Cleared out our storage that had all of our construction supplies and things. And that was like one of the last straws where I was like, it truly isn't passive. And yeah, there's 1,000 things I could have done better. And, but it does come back to doing what you love and what you're good at. And I would say to any of your listeners, if project managing is something that you're all into, and people managing, and you're one of those guys that your dream is to drive around in your car and check on your tenants and talk to them, that's your dream. Like, yes, 1,000%, this is what you should be doing. But I never loved it. I just wanted the passive income. And so when I realized that, hey, I could get passive income from crypto, I could borrow money from using my crypto. It has so many of the same benefits, but without any of the downsides and without any of the those heartaches that you experience. I do know a lot of folks, what they end up doing is they do what I did, which is, they go after those the ROI. So they're just looking, okay, where can I maximize my ROI? And it's typically with the lower end homes, the cheaper end. And then as they get more experience, they sell those off to buy nicer A-class properties. Yeah. And then they have fewer, but they have less headaches. And I thought of that as an option, but I thought, hey, I really just want that passive income, and I know I can get it through crypto.
Yeah, right. What were the top 3 lessons learned that you would say that you would share with us as it relates to building a rental portfolio? What was it that you experienced that you would say, hey, listen, these are the 3 biggest lessons I learned? Whether somebody's out there and they have an interest in pursuing and building a big rental portfolio, or they don't, based on what you've gone through, what would you say are the top 3 lessons?
Yeah, well, the reason I was able to grow, so I'll start with a positive, is I was actually getting paid on every single rental that I bought. And the reason I was able to do that was because I was buying the homes at a discount because my marketing was good. So I was able to buy the home at a discount. And let's just say the bank was lending at 80% of fair market value. If I could buy it at 70% of fair market value, when I bought that rental, I was actually getting a quote unquote wholesale fee. Essentially, I was keeping it. Plus, I was getting a rental for the life of it. So I think building those connections with the local banks is absolutely the best key that I could give anyone. Is, it's fine to use hard money lending and it's fine to use these national lenders to start, but the sooner and the faster you can build up these local relationships with local banks. And I hit my first million of loans like really quick, and they cut me off right away. But thankfully, I had a lot of other local banks that I had simultaneously building relationships with. So as soon as one cut me off, I was like, great, and built up to the next one until they cut me off, and so on. So
before you keep going, Josh, let me actually interject for a second. When you talk about the importance of building relationships, I think everybody listening can agree that that's important, that's valuable, but I want to kind of take it a step further. How specifically did you go about strategically building those relationships? Like, what was it that you did? Did you have a system, or was it just kind of random? Did you just pick up the phone and call people and talk to them? I'm just kind of curious your methodology in being very intentional about building these relationships with local banks.
Yeah, so I lived in Los Angeles, California. I only went out to Omaha, Nebraska 3 times, and I never actually visited my properties or checked any of the neighborhoods out. All I ever did was go to the banks. The only reason I flew out there from day one was to go talk with the bankers. And the first time I flew out, it wasn't to ask for the loan. I just said, hey, I'm Josh Miller. This is what I'm doing. And I'm not asking for anything, but it's literally like, this is what I'm going to be working on. And I'm going to be showing you that. And I used hard money at the very beginning, and I used national lenders, Lima One Capital, did like 30 or plus homes with them. So I know that you have to pay those points and those interest rates to start. But as soon as I could, I built those relationships with those local banks by walking in the door physically, saying, hey, this is what I am, this is what I'm doing, this is my portfolio. And once you have that, then it's like they're at the beginning it's hard, but then at that first bank is hard. The second and the third and the fourth and the fifth is easy. They're almost like they want to lend to you because they see so many people who aren't good and who don't have a bank full of money. And so if they can see that you're legit, then it's like easy.
And when you say legit, you're talking about not just how you communicate and present yourself, but you're talking about your track record. You're talking about having a business plan. You're talking, I mean, I just experienced this with the 340 unit self-storage facility that we obtained SBA financing on. I had to dial in a business plan. And in fact, I outlined in detail the process I went through to build and create that business plan. Did you find that it was somewhat similar for you, or was it just more about actually physically being face-to-face, kind of pressing palms and just meeting people and letting them know what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it was being very open with them the whole time. Like, I didn't hide anything, and I banked with them. Like, if they had the loan, I would have the rent from that property go to that bank so that they can see all the transactions and they can see the money coming in and the money coming out, and just being organized in that sense. Showing them that you're not a one-man show. So, I had a lot of different construction companies that we were working with, and I made sure that everyone came in and like just created a presence. So even though I wasn't there locally, and these are local banks who are only supposed to, serve the local community, they still very, very, very comfortable working with me.
Got it. So that was the first lesson, and I'm sorry to kind of take you off track, but
this is great.
What one or two, and there's so much, man, there's literally so many things I want to ask you. And I think people are going to kind of gobble up this content and just, I think you have a really inspiring story that people can really draw and learn from. What were some other lessons that you learned in the process of building 120 doors?
Well, I think the biggest thing that served me was I was never in my own way. Like I realized that I'm only good at one thing, and that's data, that's marketing, and I outsourced 100% of everything else to other people. So I have talked to a total of 2 homeowners my entire life. The first one, and then
Really?
I said, yeah. And then I said, I was never doing that again. And then I figured out what lease options and seller financing was. So I did the first one on that to kind of see what it was all about. And
Dude,
yeah,
I want people to hear this, Josh. You have how many wholesale deals would you say you've done in your career?
uh, total we did a little over 300 properties.
Okay, listen, guys, hear me loud and clear. Josh has done over 300 transactions just on the wholesale side, and then he acquired over an 18-month period 120 properties, and he's spoken to 1 or 2 homeowners. Like, if that doesn't illustrate and display the power of the one thing, like double, triple, quadruple down on your God-given talents, your strengths, the things you enjoy doing, and outsource everything else. That's what I'm really hoping you draw from what Josh is sharing with you. Josh either doesn't like or doesn't feel he's good at speaking to sellers. And I've gotten to know Josh a little bit, so I would challenge him and say that's probably a limited belief. But either way, he doesn't like it, but he knows he's really, really, really good at marketing and data. He just focused on that, and he was able to build at the time what he wanted. Now, he ended up ultimately figuring out that that wasn't the path he wanted to go down. And I think there's a lot of value to be learned from, or a lot of value to extract from seeing what he did, right? Quickly transitioning into something else that made him happier. But I really just want to kind of underscore and highlight the fact that you don't have to be all things in this business. You don't have to wear all the hats. You don't have to be great at marketing and acquisitions and dispositions and transaction coordination. Like, you don't have to be all those things, but you do got to find people who are really good at certain things and then focus on what you're really, really, really good at. Anything to add to that, Josh?
Oh, that's so well put. The book Traction, there's a guy, Gary Harper. I don't know if you know him. He created a really beautiful org chart from the book Traction. And I looking back, it's easy to see, but you have all those different job titles, what you just named. And I see it as every owner's goal is to just, your name might be on every single one of those boxes: the acquisition manager, the dispo manager, the marketing, the transaction coordination, and visionary and the integrator. And your job is one job, and that is to put somebody else's name on those boxes. And that's really, I was blessed to have that corporate job at the beginning so that I could hire out probably sooner than most for all of those different positions. But it was clear for me from day one that I didn't want to be talking to homeowners, and I didn't want to be, I'm not that organized operational guy. I'm just not that person. So so I guess point number 2, which was on building up that rental portfolio, is the largest cost is your marketing costs. And so the way I had my dispo manager work things was I had a flow chart for them that we were going to make money no matter what. And I think a lot of people come in and they say, I'm a wholesaler, I'm a renter, I'm a fix and flipper. Well, what they don't realize is that, all you got to do is get a contract, right? And then once you get a contract, then figure out how to dispose of it and make money. And I know there's lines of thought that says, hey, just do one thing, become the best wholesaler in the world, but I say, hey, become the best sales team, marketing team, get those contracts signed, and then figure out what to do with it. Even if you're not a realtor, if you get contracts signed every day and you have a realtor that will give you a realtor referral fee, great. If you can't get a realtor referral fee, there's lease options. And so my dispo manager had a flow chart, and I'm happy to share it with your audience, of just a process that they followed, and is a very basic Excel sheet where they knew, okay, my goal was to keep it as a rental, but was it in the right neighborhood? Did we have a construction crew available? Did the did the ROI make sense? Yes or no? If no, okay, can we wholesale it? Can we wholetail it? Can we fix and flip it? Can we keep it as a lease option? It's kind of hard to describe. I will definitely share this with you so you can share with everyone. But creating the process and not being a decision maker through it and just saying, hey, here's the process, here's the numbers to look at. Yeah. Yes or no, does it fit the box? And making money, really, that's the end of the game. Because the more money we made, the more rentals I could buy, the more marketing I can do. So it doesn't take 10 years. It can all happen fairly quickly if you maximize your sales process and your dispo process.
Right. Man, that's insanely valuable what you just talked about. You just took the complicated and you simplified it for people. And what you just said is so key, is that you just got to create a system, and then don't try to outsmart the system, but just follow the system. You created a flow chart, a lead comes in, you get it under contract. Okay, well, is it this? Is it a wholesale? Is it a retail? Is it a wholesale? Is it a lease option? And it sounds like that's what you created, man. And I'd love to, I appreciate you wanting to share that with the audience. So we'll definitely, if you want to shoot me over the spreadsheet, we'll figure out a way that in the show notes, hopefully we can get my team can figure out a way where you guys can just easily download that if that's something that that Josh is making available to you. So really appreciate that, brother. I want to kind of start to transition a little bit. It blows my mind, by the way, that you built 120 doors in your portfolio in an 18-month period. Quickly realize, hey, this is not for me. This is not the passive income I thought it might be. This isn't necessarily the way that I want to build wealth. You sold all your properties, got a bunch of cash, and then, apparently had access or a key relationship, a mentor, somebody that you really knew what they were doing when it came to crypto, specifically Bitcoin, I think you mentioned. And you followed that guidance, advice, counsel. I'm not really sure how that came to be. And you said, hey, I've spent blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of headaches building this portfolio. I'm going to convert this into cash, and then I'm going to put this in what many people consider a speculative asset. I don't know if you would agree and say that's fair, but you put it into crypto. And that obviously proved to be a very, very wise decision. Talk a little bit about just your thought process and the journey of selling all your properties, getting this cash, and then transferring it into a completely different asset class.
Yeah, it really did not feel. It was almost one of the easiest decisions that I made once I spent a little bit of time understanding Bitcoin. And really, it's the problem with the US dollar. And I don't want this, I know this isn't a crypto show, but the gist of it is that the US dollar is unstable. We have massive inflation going on. I know that the 6% number has been floating around when it's actually more like 12%, 15%.
Exactly.
And, we need, there's the gold, but I do not like Peter Schiff for a lot of reasons. And so I was looking at other alternatives, and Bitcoin is an asset protection. And that's really what I was concerned about the most. Was I worked pretty hard to make this money. I didn't want my dollar to disappear. And I knew that if I stuck all this money into the bank, and seeing it disappear at, the real 10, 15% inflation numbers, that means if I have $1 million in the bank, the next year I only have, 85,000 or whatever, $850,000 the next year, and so on. And so it doesn't take long to see all that money go away. And so I was looking for something to protect me against that. And once I understood that Bitcoin is how stable it is and how it could protect my money, and I was not getting in for it to grow. It was really more to protect my money. And it did happen to grow a lot, and I'm grateful for that. But I continue to hold for the long term, and really that's how I. And now what's actually happening is there's places like Celsius and other sites that they lend me for 3-year terms at 0% interest.
So you're leveraging your crypto. You're borrowing against your crypto.
So I'm not selling any of my crypto, and I'm still able, to live this life where, we're in Paris right now for the next year, and everything's good, and I'm still not touching my Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. And I think what this illustrates is that there's so many different paths to build wealth and to generate cash flow. And this isn't a crypto or a Bitcoin show, but that's something that I've been diving more into, as of the last 6 to 9 months. I wasn't as smart as Josh and, decided to really educate myself on this years ago. And I wish I would have, but the world is changing. And I think it's important that we adapt, and it's important that we are open-minded and don't get so boxed in to the way things have always been done. And this, I'm learning now about the metaverse and NFTs. I mean, it's a crazy world out there, and things are rapidly changing. And I think it's important to focus on what you're really, really good at. We talked about that a few minutes ago, but it's also important to broaden your horizons and understand that there's a lot of things changing. And I think it's important that, you're staying in tune. And that's, by the way, as a side note, that's part of the reason, we created Ascend, and that Josh is a part of high level masterminds and communities so that we can stay plugged in to people that quite honestly are smarter than us. And that's one of the things I've always tried to do, is get myself in a place where I'm one of the dumbest people in the room. And so, sometimes the imposter syndrome kicks in and you're like, man, what am I doing in here kind of thing? But that's where the growth happens. And so anyway, that's a whole separate conversation, but dude, I think you got a really inspiring story. I'm going to actually call an audible, Josh, and I don't even think you're aware of this, but, I kind of just decided if you're cool with this, man, I'd like to turn this into a 2-part episode. I'd like to make this episode 585, the Thursday show. And I want to, because there's so many other things I want to ask you. And we haven't even gotten to what you're really, really, really good at, which is data and marketing. And so the conversation kind of took a life of its own here. And I think this was hugely, insanely valuable for a lot of people. So if it's cool with you, man, I'd like to have you back on episode 586, make that a masterclass just about marketing, and kind of do a two-part episode, man, if that works for you.
I love it. Yeah. Sorry for talking so much.
No,
I was
at
just
all.
Like,
at all. Actually, dude, stay right there. I'm going to go ahead, guys. We're going to wrap up episode 585 here. I want to just go ahead and share with you, and we'll include this in the show notes as well. Josh is going to give us that spreadsheet. So Josh, if you want to shoot that over to me, man, so I can get it to my team. But Josh also created a free resource and a tool. So if you guys head over to hottestzip.com, Josh, my understanding is this is 100% free, right?
It's 100% free, and we'll talk about it in the next episode. But really, it's all about figuring out where you should be marketing, both on a micro and a macro sense. So in a sense, hey, if you're looking to build up a rental portfolio, it took me 6 months. Now I've compiled all the data into one place, so it should take you 6 minutes. As well, if you're wholesaling or you're looking to fix and flips or whatever you're doing, once you choose your market, really deep diving into the right zip code. It really is all about zip codes and being very local. And this tool gives you all the stuff: demographic data, MLS data, cash buyer data, all in one place. And yeah, it's completely free. Honestly, I just love data, so happy to share it.
Man, so cool. Well, I really appreciate you sharing those valuable resources. And guys, number one, make sure to grab that. It's a free tool, hottestzip.com. Number two, I think it's a perfect teaser for you to make sure that you tune into the next episode, because I'm going to have Josh back on, and we're going to dive right into the marketing, specifically marketing in 2022, data, what's working, what's not, and how you can just become a better marketer overall. So many people are focused on acquisitions, and they're focused on, just getting deals. And that's, Josh is going to make you a smarter marketer. Clearly he knows what he's doing, from nationwide PPC to doing over 300 wholesale transactions, building a huge rental portfolio in 18-month period. And now he has really tapped into his genius zone, and he's kind of He's doing a done-for-you service for real estate investors that we'll talk about on the next show as well. So with that being said, I really appreciate you guys tuning in here. Make sure that you plug into the next episode so that you can listen to Josh Miller on part 2 where we talk about marketing. So have an amazing day, guys. Hope you enjoyed that episode. But before you go, I've had a lot of people recently reach out to me wanting to learn more about Ascend, wanting to understand how the mastermind component works, how the coaching relationship works. And so right now we're actually on a waiting list. But what I would encourage you to do is if you think you're the right fit and you think you could benefit from being a part of our community, head over to ascendyoursuccess.com, watch the short video, and then just click the apply to join button below. And then we'll be in contact with you if and when a spot opens up. So really appreciate you listening to Flip Empire here, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next show. Take care.